Good morning. Welcome to the Employee Engagement Summit. My name is Anton Andrews, and I will be your host today here at the Microsoft campus. So we're going to be welcoming employees and customers from 6 world-class companies who've driven tremendous success by transforming the way they work. And this morning, their stories and our own research about the modern workplace and the new culture of work are going to showcase the importance of 3 things. We're going to talk about leadership and clarity of purpose, open communication and teamwork, and sustaining engagement across the organization in the long term. And in the end, this is all about organizational change and driving organizational change. So I'm really looking forward to the morning because I head up the Office Envisioning team at Microsoft in our engineering division, where we look at the changing world of work and we try and understand the big shifts and trends that will impact all of us here today. And we do that to identify the human needs that drive our product development. So where do we begin? What do words like productivity and workplace even mean today? What does it mean to be engaged? Work is not a purely functional thing in our lives. We spend 8 hours a day at least trying to create something, to contribute, to be recognized. Most of us want to make a difference, to achieve something. So work is this deeply important, even emotional part of our lives, but the landscape that we work in is changing, and is changing in some pretty fundamental ways. Humankind has spent the last 20 years or so wiring the world together into this huge network, and in many ways this has broken down barriers, it's accelerated the flow of information, and at the same time the speed and volume at which data and information are being generated is exploding, and so information half-life is dropping. That means you have to act really fast on information because it's suddenly much less valuable tomorrow. Rapid technological change itself is accelerating everything, of course, our ability to communicate, to create, to sense, to distribute data. All of these are becoming faster and easier all the time. And on top of that, in this networked world, teams are becoming more diverse and distributed and not just geographically. It's now common for teams to span cultures, time zones, languages, and generations. And those new demographics are bringing new expectations to the workplace. So when you take these things together, it puts massive stress on individuals, on organizations, even on governments. It results in an environment in which change is much more rapid. We live in an increasingly unpredictable world. Tomorrow is less knowable. The 21st century will be defined by uncertainty. So how do we operate in this world? The strategies we've relied on for the past 100 years, introduced by Frederick Winslow Taylor when he showed up at the workplace with a stopwatch and he wrote the Principles of Scientific Management, they've really all focused on the efficiency of process, doing the same thing repetitively at scale with maximum efficiency, milking the margins, communicating with employees strictly on a need-to-know basis, hierarchies built on the principles of command and control. And these strategies worked really well when information was scarce and when the world was predictable and stable enough to fix on one thing and optimize. But they're really no longer sufficient when the environment is evolving around you rapidly, not once a decade, not every year, but every day. Suddenly, a team or a company can find itself very efficiently doing the wrong thing. An organization can find itself with a very disengaged workforce. And that becomes a real problem. It becomes a survival problem. How are you going to adapt and evolve and respond? As individuals, as teams, and as organizations, when the world around you is in a constant state of flux? How are you going to continuously learn and stay up to date? What is going to motivate people to lean in and do their best work, to innovate, to collaborate? And add to that, the global challenges we need to solve now are bigger and more complex than ever before. So we believe that effective, resilient organizations in this environment, the ones that will survive, are the ones that are going to be inherently creative and innovative in their ability to respond. And we believe this will be driven by an engaged workforce and a new culture of work. Clearly, a new set of strategies is needed. In the information-abundant world, transparency and clarity of purpose yield better results than protectionism and opaqueness. They build trust and align purpose. Collaborating and finding the answers together is clearly a better strategy than struggling alone in the face of information abundance. And empowering decision-making, pushing it to the edges, is not only faster than command and control, it results in sustained engagement over time. So these hallmarks of the modern workplace, leadership and clarity of purpose, open communication and teamwork, and sustained engagement through empowerment, they're interlocking and in different ways have driven the transformation at the companies whose leaders will join us today. And I'm lucky enough to work at one of those companies, and I'm about to introduce our first guest, Kathleen Hogan, our Chief People Officer, who's been integral in leading a pretty dramatic and rapid cultural transformation that's still underway here at Microsoft. So with that, I'd like to welcome Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen, it's great to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me. Certainly everything that you were talking about resonates with me here at Microsoft, but also as I talk to my colleagues from around the world.
Fantastic. So culture is obviously a hot topic today, and I think Microsoft has garnered a fair amount of attention around cultural transformation. With all of the workplace and workforce changes that you're seeing, why is culture so important?
We believe culture is absolutely important to engage employees and to attract and retain exceptional talent. In fact, we say sometimes culture is the new currency. And we're super focused on having a unique learning culture here at Microsoft, but also having that in service to a mission where people have that deep sense of purpose. And so we believe if you can have this amazing culture in service to a mission that people really care about and they find deep meaning in, that can be really powerful in terms of employee engagement. Our strategy continues to evolve. We know that's going to change. Technology is moving so fast, but that culture and that mission we really hope are long-lasting.
So you and Satya worked with the leadership team to define our culture, and that was a pretty intentional process. You took your time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it took a good 9 months, so I'll try to distill that in like 9 seconds, or maybe a little more. But when I came into role, Satya said, the number one thing is for you to help me with is really evolving our culture. So even then he knew that that was going to be a real world-class problem that we really wanted to focus on. And so we had an offsite with his directs where we really talked about the culture that we wanted to have. We took our 180 leaders, executives off-site. We broke into 17 teams. The team leaders became the culture cabinet. We were engaging with researchers and experts from around the world. We met with Dr. Dweck from Stanford, who wrote the book Mindset. We met with Dr. Gervais, a mindfulness coach with the Seahawks, Jeff Rakes, who was the CEO at Gates Foundation, but also prior to that was an executive at Microsoft. And so we were tapping into a lot of experts. And then we were really tapping into our employees and really doing roundtables and focus groups to understand what was the Aspire to culture that they wanted to have. What did they want to retain that was unique about our culture, but what did they think we would need to evolve to be successful going forward? And so we looked at it from many different angles. We did focus groups with men and women and sales and engineering, US, non-US, millennials, non-millennials, really looking at it from many different dimensions, but ultimately decided to ground our culture in this concept of a growth mindset and really focused on being more customer obsessed, more diverse and inclusive, and then really operating as one Microsoft. And all of that in service to making a difference using technology to empower people.
Right. And
so it was a long process.
Yes, I can imagine. And so you knew you had to engage a large number of employees, 110,000, around these ideas, the growth mindset and so on. How did you do that? How did you go about that?
Well, as you said, with 110,000 employees, 16,000 managers, 190 countries,
right.
There's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
So we did many things. One of the things we tried to do is think about big intentional changes we could make that would grab people's attention, that we really were changing. Things like changing the performance review system, changing our company meeting where we would have a 4-hour meeting talking at employees, change that to a 1-week hackathon where we really engaged diverse teams from around the world to really show that we were focused on listening and being learn-it-alls and not know-it-alls. So big symbolic changes, but then also we tried to do small changes. We rolled out 10 inclusive behaviors and asked people, pick one in your team and discuss it, whether it be not interrupting people or making sure all voices are heard before the meeting is adjourned. So we focused on that. And then certainly communications was absolutely critical. You know, this constant and consistent communication at all levels for people to really understand first, you know, what the culture we aspire to have, but then also how to embody that culture.
Right, right. So if I could interrupt you for a moment, since throughout, you know, this cultural transformation, we've learned a lot, obviously. And you just mentioned the 10 things we learned. I think you published a piece on LinkedIn called "The 10 Things We've Learned About Culture." Could we maybe focus specifically on one of those, which was how technology has helped you roll out some of this culture change?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, I always lead with one of the things I've learned is about 1 in 3 companies that try to change their culture are actually successful. So I humbly say what we've learned so far, but we're definitely not declaring victory. But we've learned 10 things. And one thing that I added to the list, which you've mentioned, is technology. When I started to meet with customers from around the world, I realized that technology and how it accelerated our change here at Microsoft was something I took for granted.
Right, right.
But it was something that really was unique that I needed to call out. We were using technology to keep score, using Power BI and dashboards. That was really powerful. We were using big data and AI to really reason over employee data, to gain insights, to debunk some myths that people had or held on to help propel the culture forward. But probably most importantly was really using our technology for teaming and collaboration and bringing those agile and diverse teams from around the world together. And then also to really engage in employees at scale, really using technology to have that two-way dialogue at scale with 110,000 people in 190 countries. That's been really, I think, critical to our success.
Yes, I can imagine that wasn't easy, you know, across that breadth. And even if you have very consistent communications, how do you create that dialogue that you mentioned, this sort of two-way dialogue, as opposed to just communicating out?
Well, and you're right. Sometimes we communicate out. We've used Sway and technology like that to communicate to managers and employees, you know, real depth behind the growth mindset. But then we've used things like Yammer to really connect at scale and have that two-way dialogue. I think one of the most impactful ways we've done that is with our monthly Q&A that Satya and his leadership team have with the entire company. And so leading up to that Q&A, we're on Yammer, we're getting themes and questions and seeing what's on people's mind. We use that to address those topics in the actual Q&A with Satya. During the Q&A, people can ask questions either in person, but also we take questions from Yammer and online. And then the dialogue continues after the Q&A. In fact, after the Q&A, we can assess sentiment, you know, what resonated, what didn't, and then that feeds back into the next Q&A. And so I think it's been really powerful for us to have that two-way dialogue and for people to really hear from Satya and the leadership team in a consistent way and in a way where they feel like they're really part of that dialogue.
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed as an employee. You know, it's not just the town halls, the Q&As, but it's also this in-between, and that's where it continues.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can you tell us a little bit more, since we're, you know, here today to learn about some of those technologies, can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, in fact, I'd rather just show you. And so I've invited Naomi, who's been absolutely essential to helping a lot of our teams take advantage of this technology, including our CEO. So welcome, Naomi.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's a real privilege to be able to share a little bit about what we're doing at Microsoft. So I have a great environment to share with you. It's really representative of the work that we've been doing, both as Kathleen described from a CEO connection perspective, but also how we're really looking at this model for leaders altogether. So if we go here, we can actually see that we have a CEO connection group. You can see that it's an engaging and vibrant group. We've got lots of questions, we've got answers, we've got photographs, people are actually sharing all kinds of content. And it's really helpful to understand really what's top of mind for the organization. It's a great way to get that engagement and to help sustain that engagement in between all of those different events that we're doing. You can also see that we give some guidance to you when you first come into the group. We actually want to be able to share with you how easy it is to actually ask a question of our senior leadership team. And this kind of transparency is really helpful, right, to help guide you into this process. As you click through here, you'll see also that we have scheduled broadcast. And these are kind of those moments of high engagement. It's really where we want to concentrate the effort and the energy inside of our organization, but we want to make sure it's real and understand, what are issues for our company and really bring those as part of that moment of high engagement. When I click through onto this broadcast, you'll see that we've put together a teaser video. And it's really helpful to be able to understand, like just to get that engagement and understand the themes and top of mind that in this case, Satya would be sharing. I can see this video is powered by Microsoft Stream. And as I click through on here, we're also being very conscientious, of course, to make sure that the content that we're sharing is inclusive and accessible to everyone. So when I click through, I can actually get the closed captions switched on and off automatically. And that transcription capability that we have is built into what we're doing. So I can actually do a search right inside of this video, even right now. So I'm going to search for the word challenge in this case. And if I wanted to see the top of mind, we can actually go right to that part of the video. It's just a really great way to be able to cue and understand what kinds of things we've shared in the past, and then be able to use that as a reference point for things in the future. So for part of my upcoming broadcast, I can actually see a little bit more about what's going on inside of the group. I can see that there are questions that are already being asked as part of this event, and so I can easily use those as kind of input going forward into our next broadcast. But we know at Microsoft it's not just about the conversations. Conversations are essential for modeling that two-way communication that Kathleen talked about, but really understand that there's more to that inside of your organization too. One of the things that we like to do here is to have a CEO Connections site, and that really helps us inside of understanding the other information that we want to share out. There's a few things that are available to us here. It's kind of a rich place to be able to experience articles, news, being able to share, obviously, the conversations that we have as part of our CEO Connection community as well. And I can share the latest as well as blogs, and even understand where we can do polling. So being able to outreach again in lots of different ways to our employees and be able to use that as a great source of content as well as that connection that we feel. You can also check out the latest in the documents and policies, and maybe there's follow-up from those last moments in those broadcasts, and be able to share that broadly and have one place for people to find everything. It's important as we look through at these conversations here that we understand a little bit about the impact. So over in my CEO Connections group, I can actually check out what are the group insights. And so you'll see as I scroll through the page here, I can actually check out that how many people have actually been reading the conversations and interacting on the conversations. And that's powerful data as an internal communicator. I can also check out understanding the group insights that are available as part of this too. So for example, I can see that over the last few months, we've had some really great engagement. And it's really about understanding and sustaining that engagement as part of what we're doing. With the integrated capabilities of Microsoft 365, we're connecting Satya and the organization with sustained engagement, as well as those moments of high engagement, and driving open communications at a global scale.
Thanks, Naomi. So Kathleen, it really has shifted, this idea of leadership communication from simple linear broadcast to a much more interactive dialogue.
Yeah, no, it's been phenomenally successful. I mean, certainly the data shows that in terms of the number of people who were engaged in this connection in the beginning and how many people dial in or watch now, it's been phenomenal. But I think even more importantly, if you go around the world and you go to Poland or you go to Singapore, people will come up to me and say, I feel like I know Satya, even though I've never met him. Right? And I feel connected to the strategy and what's happening perhaps at headquarters, even though I've never been to Redmond. And so I think it creates this two-way dialogue, but a very inclusive sense where people really feel involved. And it's not just for the CEO and using it at the company level. I think all of our teams use this. I use it to connect with the HR professionals from around the world. I do my own all hands. I get into Yammer afterwards. We dedicate 2 hours where we commit to being real time, having that dialogue. And I learn as much from that as hopefully the HR folks on the Yammer gain from it as well, because it really is that two-way dialogue.
Fantastic. Kathleen, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here
Great to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've learned from our discussion with Kathleen that in a rapidly changing environment, leadership and clarity of purpose are key to driving engagement. A culture that has a growth mindset, that is willing to take risks and is able to learn from mistakes, is ultimately more responsive and innovative. So when leadership both models and rewards behaviors like transparency, open dialogue, the growth mindset, and clearly communicates these goals to the organization, people can start aligning around that and rallying towards a common purpose. And so these cultural shifts all begin with leadership and are reinforced with cultural rituals and codes that build trust over time. So let's now look halfway around the world to KFC Australia. And I would like to welcome John D'Souza, People Capability Director at KFC. John plays a key role in driving brand purpose and engagement across KFC, including connecting over 35,000 of KFC's team members across all of Australia. So welcome, John. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I talk about engagement, I want to share with you a little bit about KFC Australia's goal and who we are. Now, our goal is to be a brand loved by all, and that is our external customers, but also our 35,000 team members. Who we are? We're always original, just like the Colonel was. He was real, he was authentic, he did things the right way, even if that meant the hard way. Now, always original means many things to our 35,000 team members, which is actually what makes it so unique. But there are two principles that are consistent in every one of our 640 restaurants. Our customer promise, irresistible taste, and memorable experience. Now, that's the experience, the always original experience we give our customers. Internally, our people promise. Be your best self, make a difference, and have fun. That's the always original experience we give our team members. So today what I want to do is talk to you about how we achieve that brand love through the inside out, through building engagement and living our people promise. Now, research shows that consumers don't necessarily trust what big brands have to say. They want real stories, real experiences from people inside the organisation. So in order for us to achieve that goal of being a brand loved by all, we needed to start from the inside out. So a little bit about KFC Australia. 35,000 team members, average age 17 years old. A team member will generally start working at KFC at the age of 15. 1 in 700 Australians work at KFC. 1 in 45 of our youth work at KFC. So you can see that's an amazing opportunity for us to build that brand love internally first. Now, it was important for us to really understand what engagement meant. So we partnered with a company called We Are Unity. And We Are Unity went into our restaurants to understand what it was that people really loved about working at KFC. What did engagement look like? And two key things came out. They wanted a voice and they wanted to feel connected. Regardless of whether you work in Sydney or whether you work in Perth, you were one, they felt part of one KFC family. So it's because of this that we identified Yammer as a tool to help us achieve that. By using Yammer, it allowed us to not only connect our teams all across Australia, but it helped them give us the voice that they wanted. Okay, so let's talk about our recipe for success. Community management. Someone to drive momentum and engagement. Brand content. Not just brand content from your head office, but we got our team members to create their own brand content. Having trust in your employees and giving them a voice was critical. Buy-in from leadership. Team member to team member engagement. Why have someone in head office to create engaging content? Allow your team members to engage with each other. And guys, most importantly, have some fun. So, community manager. Now look, we didn't think this was critical to the success of Yammer. But given our younger demographic, we did feel that it played a huge part in our own success. We did think about having an agency help us moderate Yammer, but from a team member's perspective, it kept the ideas fresh and relative. So this is Emily. Emily is in a role, it's a 12-month secondment role. Emily gets the benefit of getting experience in head office, and we get the benefit of having the right tone of voice. which is just fantastic for our younger demographic. Some examples of some of the things that go on Yammer. At KFC, we have a huge recognition culture. Now, the impact of peer-to-peer recognition in real time is just amazing. An example here of an external initiative where we slightly tweaked internally first. So we're big sponsors of the cricket in Australia, and our fans in Australia like to call themselves the Buckethead Army. So we all put buckets on our heads and go to the cricket. And this is an example where we slightly tweaked an initiative before going external, and we got our team members, we tweaked it, and we got them to do a few different challenges as we launched the cricket season. Something so simple, yet so effective. Walking the talk. This is our CEO, Nikki Lawson. Nikki is in the top 10 active users on Yammer. Now picture this, if you're a team member, you have your CEO walk into your restaurant. Not only do they recognize you, but then share it with 25,000 of your peers. Having a voice. Here's a picture of Rob Phipps, our CPO, who goes online and gives the opportunity to our team members to ask in real time, real questions, and get authentic responses. So some examples of bringing our people promise to life to ensure that they're not just words on a wall. So be your best self. We want people to be their best selves inside and outside of KFC. So we launched a wellness initiative, and here's an example of where team members are encouraging each other to bring wellness front of mind, even outside of work. Make a difference. Make a difference in your restaurants, but also within the community. An example here of a team member encouraging others in their team and other restaurants to get behind such a worthwhile cause, and that is to end world hunger. And of course, there is the fun piece. So it becomes infectious to the rest of the brand. As you can see from this post, people get out there, enjoy themselves, and enjoy what they do. Now, linking this to business outcomes, linking our engagement to business outcomes is just as important. So we have two examples. Now think about it from safety. How do you portray a very serious message, but in a fun way? So here's a quick example. So we launched a safety campaign 3 months ago. And the idea of that safety campaign was to bring safety front of mind for our team members, but it was also to make sure that our managers were reporting to mitigate risk. We had to find fun, engaging ways. And here's one video of how we did that. Now, I can share with you today that out of just using simple examples like this, our safety reporting was increased by 28% in 3 months. So clearly it's front of mind. The next example, Friendly Friday, an initiative where we gave our team members free license to go out there and really engage with their customers. They got dressed up, they dressed as superheroes, and I can tell you, not only did customer satisfaction get up on a Friday, but all week round. So what next now? Analytics. We've partnered with Swoop Analytics. We're really trying to understand the data behind what is engaging our teams. So lastly, key takeouts, have a clear purpose. For us, engagement, engagement, engagement. That's what we use Yammer for. We have other channels that we can send out process. Trust your employees. We've only ever had to take 0.03% of posts down. Trust them. Leadership buy-in. Develop brand content with a people lens. Don't just replicate it. Ensure you've got a people lens on it. Dedicated community manager. And guys, most importantly, have some fun along the way. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John, for giving us an inside look at KFC's journey. So John's story illustrates that a key element of engagement is open communication and teamwork. In the information-abundant world, the volume and speed of information are just too much for any single person. Collaboration is a requisite. And this means that the opportunity for creating value is shifting from the individual to the collective. Working in the open in real time is becoming a requirement. Teamwork is becoming more important. It's now critical that information flows fast and freely inside your organization. If it doesn't, you risk disruption or irrelevance. Both Kathleen and John have discussed the value of engaging people across the organization in what we call your outer loop. But information flow and engagement is, of course, equally valuable for your tight-knit teams, the groups of people that you work with in your inner loop every day to create, manage, and deliver results. So when you're informationally working in the open, people can build on each other's knowledge and experience in real time, and they can rapidly remix and reuse ideas to form new ones. And inclusiveness, bringing in ideas from different perspectives, we know creates richer outcomes. So in this landscape, we're going to need to assemble teams more rapidly around challenges in the moment, bringing people from different disciplines together as needed. And as these teams fluidly form and disband again, we're going to need really great tools for them to quickly ramp up, establish mindshare, and collaborate. And since we're talking about the importance of empowering dynamic teamwork, what better way to test this than the volatile world of consulting companies? So please welcome Jason Warnke, Global Social Enterprise Lead at Accenture. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Anton. So I'm going to share with you today how we go about collaboration across a large distributed global workforce. Accenture is a global organization of over 435,000 employees across client sites, offices, and even home offices, 75% of which are millennial workers. The way we work is team-based and project-based, no matter if it's a client engagement or an internal research project. I'm going to share with you just a few examples that are important to the way that Accenture's teams engage every day. The first one is about a team of global consultants collaborating every day to create deliverables. We work with a variety of different documents and scenarios. For example, industry papers, thought leadership documents, and client deliverables. In our business, being able to build upon each other's thoughts and ideas is essential to the way we work. A great example is constructing one of our annual thought leadership pieces around our technology vision. The next example is really close to home for me. One of my favorite examples is real-time collaboration during last year's hurricane season in South Florida and Texas. Being able to quickly engage people rapidly could not have been more important. In this example, our teams needed to quickly and easily communicate across office locations across Florida and Texas to coordinate assistance to our teams on the ground, all while on their mobile devices. We really felt the benefit of being able to connect and collaborate real time during a time of need. The last example is important to us with a company our size in terms of finding and retaining talent. This is a key priority, as it is to all global enterprises. Accenture hires more than 100,000 new people a year, so being able to share and collaborate in a fluid, real-time manner is absolutely essential. Let me start with a recent example from a recruiting team in India. We had a 10-person team planning a university recruiting event, expected to engage thousands of candidates through multiple events around the year. Given the scale and importance of the campus program, it's critical to have fluid, real-time, and transparent communication and collaboration. The team needed to easily access everything while on the go, all in one place, allowing new team members to get up to speed on the campus activities in flight is absolutely important. In order to be able to collaborate and communicate effectively and address these business challenges, we chose Microsoft Teams as part of our evolving suite of technology tools. Our employees at Accenture use Teams as a digital cockpit for collaboration and communication. To show you more of what that looks like, I'd like to invite Farron from Microsoft to the stage. Farron?
Thank you, Jason. So I'm part of a team that's doing university recruiting, and we use one digital hub for all of our collaboration and communication needs, and I want to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to start out in our planning channel. And in this planning channel, we are sharing several documents amongst the team members. You can see that PowerPoint deck has been specifically marked as important. But another thing we do in the way we share information is we also have fun. So through GIFs and emojis, we've made our communications and our engagements with one another a lot more personable and relevant. But true collaboration only really happens when everyone has a voice. One of the more exciting things that my teammates and myself can do is we have inline message translation. So a colleague could be sitting in France, typing in French, or in China, typing in Mandarin, and I can translate that into my native language, ensuring that the way in which we collaborate and engage is truly inclusive. Now, on the topic of inclusivity, I want to show you what happens when I open up this university event planning guide. So my teammates and I can open up this document and we can edit this document directly within Teams without switching context. The great thing about this whole experience is that not only can we co-edit, but we can also have rich conversations around this document. But what about if we needed to jump into a meeting to clarify any particular aspect of this document? We could quite easily start an online meeting. There it goes. And the great part is that the document as well as the conversation comes into the meeting with me. So my meeting is relevant, contextual, and real-time.
This is an awesome example. We're collaborating across documents, across time zones very often. And the chat is right alongside the document that we're sharing. But oftentimes, if the team members are online, we'll jump right into a discussion so we can resolve something more quickly instead of having to go back and forth communicating those changes. So this is a great example and very relevant.
That's right. But the reality is not everyone can always attend a meeting. So what we use in this team is we've recorded previous meetings in the cloud. And we can jump straight into one of our previous meetings. We can hit play on this meeting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the meeting and do a specific search for the word candidate. It will bring up all instances where the word candidate was mentioned. I can jump straight to that section. And I can even view a closed caption. Now let's fast forward to the day of the actual event. I'm going to go into the events channel. And in this channel, you'll see that my teammates and I are sharing important logistical information regarding the actual event. We've also incorporated a Twitter feed and weather notifications. And we've also pinned the campus map for quick reference by myself and my teammates. So now we've had a successful event and we're back at the office making hiring decisions. So I'm going to go into the hiring review channel. And one thing that my teammates and I do is we use a shared notebook to capture all of our feedback and literally make hiring decisions. And what this does is ensures that our teammates are always on the same page. But we can also look at a data dashboard and look at all of our historic decisions to see how we're tracking. And this is really how our team has used one shared hub for collaboration and communication, all the way from planning to execution to the post-implementation results. Back to you, Jason.
That's great. That's an awesome example. At Accenture, we use Microsoft Teams to connect our teams across different geographies and different businesses. The right technology can be an enabler for teams to tap into talent, connect with others, and even to make a difference in times of need. Giving people access to the right technology tools is essential to deliver their best work and drive effective employee engagement.
Thank you so much, Jason and Farron. So obviously, employee engagement can look very different across organizations, depending on a number of factors, your industry, your corporate culture, but also your leadership team and their key priorities. I'm very excited this morning to be joined now by 4 leaders from 3 very different companies whose organizations have each gone through their own unique journeys over the past several years. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Russ Dyer, who's joining us from Mondelez International, global snacking powerhouse. I'm sure you've heard of Cadbury, Oreo. They have a wide portfolio of brands. And as the VP of Global Communications, Russ leads the development and implementation of communication strategies for more than 90,000 employees worldwide. Russ is joined this morning by Zohair Akolawala, Mondelez International's Senior VP and Global Chief Information Officer. And Zohair is responsible for leading the company's information technology and solutions, and also its business process excellence organization. Joining us from Boston, we have Celine Schillinger at Sanofi Pasteur, a global leader in producing vaccines and a division of the pharmaceutical giant Sanofi. As the head of quality innovation and engagement, Celine has a wealth of experience designing and implementing new leadership and corporate transformation strategies at a global scale. And from London, we have Harry Miller from Tsb Bank, a retail and commercial bank, previously a part of Lloyd's banking group and now a subsidiary of Sabadell Group. Harry is the head of internal communications and community engagement for TSB, and as such, she's focused on setting the strategic direction for their internal narrative, as well as leading communications for major change programs. So I want to start off by talking about sustained engagement, and more specifically, how employee engagement helps drive the strategy of an organization. Harry, you've been in a unique position where you've actually created a brand new bank, TSB, out of Lloyd's, a large traditional bank. Can you tell us how that happened?
So TSB is a UK bank, and we were born out of the financial crisis, which most of us will have experienced in some way, shape or form. And we needed to create a bank that was going to increase competition in the UK banking space and ultimately make banking better for everyone. So it's quite a big ask for us, and we needed to take our people with us on that journey. And we started out with about 4,000 people who were carved out from Lloyd's banking group. And we just needed to make sure that those guys knew why we were on this journey. They believed in what we needed to achieve. So engaging our teams was vitally important in that process.
Wow, so there you are trying to define and drive the culture for your new challenger bank. You've got 4,000 people. How did you create that level of engagement, of belief in the mission and the journey?
So in TSB, it was very important that we established some key values that would steer us as we were developing this and launching this new bank. Two of the values that we set up were being collaborative and being transparent. And whilst they seem very simple in the banking industry, they were values that certainly seemed to kind of disappear and probably got us into this mess a little bit. So in TSB, we need to make sure that we created that water wheel of communication in our business, so that we're talking on a level, so we're not cascading information down to our people. It's very much a conversation, so that people own this bank. They feel empowered to make decisions within this bank, whether you are working in one of our branches or whether you are the CEO. It's equally important that we all believe in what we're trying to achieve and feel that you can make a difference.
Thank you, Harry. Celine, over to you. You've used engagement to drive a very important outcome for Sanofi Pasteur. Can you tell us why engagement is so important to your organization?
Sanofi Pasteur is the vaccine division of Sanofi. It is the world's largest company dedicated to the manufacturing of human vaccines. And as a world leader, we are responsible for manufacturing vaccines that protect people against more than 20 infectious diseases, totaling annually to more than 1 billion doses of vaccines every year that immunize more than 500 million people worldwide. So therefore, as a company, we must rigorously pursue quality in our manufacturing processes across the entire company. And as you know, vaccine manufacturing is a highly complex, very regulated activity. There are controls at each and every step of the manufacturing process, which is why we spend actually more than almost 70% of our time in quality controls. And every single employee, wherever of the company, wherever they sit, must be engaged and committed to pursuing quality, to ensuring quality, not just to make the company successful, but because we save lives.
So throughout the morning, we've talked about technology as an enabler for more transparent and open communications. Russ, Mondelez, we've said is a global powerhouse with a wide portfolio of brands. It can't be easy to connect people across that breadth. Can you tell us about your role as the head of corporate communications? How has some of your technology enabled you to create connection and dialogue across Mondelez at scale?
So we're a very global company. It's a key competitive advantage for us to have such a diverse geographic footprint. But with that footprint comes some challenges with increasingly virtual relationships and ways of working, more remote populations of employees, remote reporting lines. What Yammer does is it shrinks our world, and it enables those human connections on a level that no other tools provide. From a communication standpoint, we spend a lot of time focusing on our people, the proof points of heroic efforts in driving our business and celebrating our successes and our people agenda. But there's nothing more powerful than arming a colleague with a tool that they can tell their own story. And there's so much that our colleagues are proud of that they share in real time, locally, and it'll make connections in a way that you can't through traditional communications channels.
That's very powerful. Zohair, you and Russ have worked so closely together across communications and IT. Can you tell us how your IT team focuses on bringing value to the organization as a strategic partner for teams like Russ's? How does that collaboration work?
So if you think beyond the use cases, I think some of the things that we look for in the organization with the adoption of technology is what new capability does the technology bring in that we didn't have the ability to do before. And with Yammer, one of the things which was really good that we use often is to have a passionate conversation with colleagues around the world in a concentrated period of time where everybody can exchange their input and their thoughts. And I don't know if it's the official term or we call it Yam Jam internally, but the idea of having 80, 100, 200 people across 12 time zones all collaborating and talking about what they think of a certain business situation or a certain priority or even a certain social conversation that we would want to get into, the technology now makes it possible to interact while you have that many people engaging in the conversation. And that is something that, personally, from a technology owner standpoint, I really like to bring to the organization because that was a capability we didn't have before.
That's amazing. So, you're all really living this move from thinking about communication to actually enabling real conversation. And Zohair, you made a great point about introducing new high-value capabilities that really didn't exist before. So Harry, back to you as the communications owner at TSB. What new capabilities have you seen technology enable?
So these days, keeping people in TSB abreast of latest and breaking news is much easier than it has been ever before. We used to have to rely on, word of mouth, and often a lot of the time, you'd send an email out to certain layers of the organization, and they would then pass the message on, and you'd hope that they managed to get the message. So now, not only do we have extra tools that we can use, so we can Yammer notify people and it pushes up on their phone. We actually have metrics to tell us how deep that penetration has been, so we can assess it then to say, was that a successful way of delivering that message or was it not, and what do we need to do next time to make it better? So the data is as important to us as the tool in formulating what we're going to do in the future.
Russ, back to you. How have people at Mondelez leaned into the new experiences and capabilities that you and Zohair have made available?
We soft launched in the middle of last year, and just in the back half of the year saw a number of really great use cases proving out the value of the tool. The first is just baseline engagement. One of our people strategies, as we call it, is to celebrate our success more. And in an increasingly virtual working environment where a lot of employees work with reporting relationships across lots of different time zones, remote teams working that are not connected in the same space, we saw a real appetite to share and connect through Yammer quickly after we launched it. You can look at a function like sales that has a lot of employees out in the field. They are not in an office every day. They're in the supermarkets and our trade retail partners, and they want to connect and share what they're doing. So it wasn't just, again, a one-way push, but we found that the sales teams were taking these amazing photos of stunning in-store displays that they were doing that they were very proud of and sharing back. And it was creating just this great dialogue for an employee population that's historically been somewhat siloed and removed from the corporate communications experience. So that was just one great population and use case that we saw emerge. Another one was something that doesn't happen every year for a lot of companies, which is CEO transition and CEO succession. It was a great tool, not only as an opportunity for our colleagues to say farewell to our exiting CEO, share pictures, reflections, and connect directly with her, but also welcome the new CEO. And we look to Yammer to source real-time live questions and answers and dialogues for our global town halls. So again, new use cases and opportunities that we wouldn't have been provided without a tool like this in place for these unique experiences.
That's fantastic. Celine, as you were getting people engaged around quality, you wanted to unlock that sort of tacit tribal knowledge in your employees, and you launched an initiative, I think you called it Corporate Social Activism. How did that go? What kind of uptake did you see?
We had high hopes for people to jump in, and our hopes were not disappointed. But you know, when you tap into conversations that deal with the heart of our company's mission and purpose, engagement is really high. We started with a small Yammer group with 12 people about 3 years ago, and it's now about 2,000 people strong, and it keeps growing, which is fantastic. Every day there are like dozens of conversations happening. So knowledge is flowing like big time and worldwide, across layers, across sites, across culture, across languages. Some of our employees have created activist networks on big manufacturing sites that gather hundreds of employees. And we have seen people speaking up on Yammer and saying, hey, there was a problem, and here's what I did about it, or what we did about it, and this is what we got from that. So we established a new habit, that is to share wins. A win is an action. It's not just an idea, it's an action made by working together differently that makes yesterday better than today, better than yesterday, or tomorrow better than today.
So one thing about creating engagement, especially sustained engagement, is that it leads to much more effective outcomes. It drives results for the business. Harry, let's turn to that. How have the initiatives that you've led positioned Tsb Bank today?
So TSB today is in a great position. We're continuing to be a challenger on the banking high street. We're doing great work in the small business banking space, which is going to be a big area for us in 2018 and beyond. And our people are in a great place too. We're working super hard to get those things done, and obviously that can be really hard on teams. But because we've got a great collaborative and transparent approach in TSB, talking to each other really, really helps. And there are indicators that show that that's working. So, our employee engagement results are really positive still. And also things like the Sunday Times just recently put us in the top 5 for best big companies to work for in the UK, which is superb. And even better when you realize that we were the only bank in that space to be awarded that level.
And how about you, Celine? What results have you seen at Sanofi? And most importantly, perhaps, can you measure them?
The business benefits are absolutely tremendous, and they're easy to monitor because we have so many indicators in quality. So I'm not even talking about the cultural benefits, but really the hard data. What do they show us? They show us that we have improved our cost effectiveness a lot. We have been able to simplify with volunteers through good ideas coming from everywhere, sometimes up to 60% of critical manufacturing and business processes, saving a lot of our resources to be able to, and being able to dedicate them to more critical needs of our customers. A second area of benefit is the reduction in quality issues, in deviations. And deviations is when things don't go right. And we have seen a drop, a spectacular drop, double-digit drop in deviations that had never been seen in the 10 years prior to this project. Overall, we have reduced the risk profile of the company, which is tremendous. We have had a positive impact on supply, on write-offs, etc. But I would say probably the bigger picture that I see is one of behavior change. And that is often the most difficult thing to achieve in those business transformation projects. And I'm really proud and grateful that at Sanofi Pasteur we have been able to achieve this at such a large scale because we manufacture vaccines, and vaccines save lives. So it's important to get that right.
I couldn't agree with you more, Celine. Congratulations to you all for the amazing success you've driven into your organizations, and thank you so much for joining us here today. So our panel this morning clearly illustrated the third element of engagement, this idea of sustaining engagement by empowering your employees. So whether you're a first-line worker, an information worker, or even a manager, once you're equipped with the bigger picture, and once you have the tools at your disposal to rapidly communicate and collaborate, then leadership can empower you to make those decisions at the edges without needing to go up and down the hierarchy. And in a fast-moving and information-rich world, this results in better decisions, and better decisions at the edges are not a nice-to-have, they're a requisite. So we've learned from leaders at 6 great companies today who've used technologies to deliver their strategic objectives through leadership and clarity of purpose, through open communication and teamwork, and through sustained engagement through empowerment. And we've seen that whatever industry you're in, however big or small your organization is, that when workers and employees and leaders are engaged in a real conversation, when they can share and learn from each other's experience, when they're empowered to bring their whole self to work, to succeed in the mission, that it ultimately creates a more healthy, more innovative, more responsive and effective organization. So on behalf of those of us at Microsoft, I'd like to thank you and send a big thank you to all of our guests, and thank you for joining us at the Employee Engagement Summit today. Thank you.